especially when it's somebody as close as your parents. I'm grateful. I haven't experienced that yet, but it's sad because it's one of those like inevitable, one of those things you can't get away from in life, right? And it's always hard when you hear about somebody going through it, but it was kind of refreshing to hear him. After the game, he talks about Arne Slot just basically giving them the go of, hey, don't try to rush anything back. You can take the time and be with your family and mourn and do all that stuff. But for him, it was the guy wanted to be out there, and understandably so. When I heard it, I thought maybe you never know. Maybe that's his way of kind of coping with the fact that he just lost his dad. I don't know the how close his relationship with his father and stuff like that, but when you've dedicated so much stuff to a game like this, to a passion of yours, I can imagine that it's kind of it's what helps you get through some of the hard times, right? And so I think all the kudos to him. I thought he played very well defensively, and then obviously finishing off with their last goal of that game. And you could see his teammates getting really excited for him and getting excited with him, and it was nice. And him getting emotional at the end there. It was just the perfect kiss of a game for him and for Liverpool, honestly, because you know one of the my son's coughing in the background. One of the other things too that I was talked about going into that game is potentially Arne Slot being in trouble if they lose because of what their form had been like in the Premier League, right? And look, I'm always like, for me, I'm always very excited, and I root for new coaches, right? Like even the Chelsea guy right now, like I didn't really know much about him. I forget his name right now. And I remember when he was linked with Chelsea, and I saw dressing room speech that he gave, and for me it's like, fresh start. You want to be excited for people, right? Like that's how I am. I like to be excited for people when they have their fresh start. So for me, Arne Slot coming in last year, winning the Premier League in his first year, and I'll be honest, I thought this season would be the true season of test for him, right? Because he's coming in, and Jurgen Klopp was there, and that team. You kind of, I don't know. You kind of get the sense that culture was already set, and it was more so of him just riding the wave of what Jurgen already had established there, right? So you kind of get that sense, and it naturally then this year would be like the true year where, okay, let's see what this guy has. So for me, new coach, new environment. I want him to do the best he can. Although I am a Man U fan. Like, look, man, I'm a fan of a lot of teams, but I don't necessarily hate on other teams, except for when Arsenal scores from a corner kick. I don't love that as much, but if I'm being honest with myself, if that was my team scoring like that and winning like that, I'd have no problem with it. So, it is what it is. But another news heading into the game, right? Florian Wirtz. I mean, it's funny because I remember when he first got to Liverpool and the amount of slack that this guy was getting for, apparently he just wasn't worth he wasn't worth the amount of money that they paid for him. And I actually want to see how much they paid for him. Verts Liverpool contract. I want to see how much they actually ended up paying for him. Okay, so yeah, it was a 5-year contract, $156 million. So he was making 20 to 22 million. I guess this is euros or pounds, whatever. Annually. I mean, that's pretty good money. But people are giving him slack, saying like, "Oh, he's not Premier League fit," and not fit, but just wouldn't live up to the game in the Prem and all that stuff. But the guy's like, he's amazing, man. He's amazing on the ball. Like I found out about him. Well, I think most people found out about him when he was at Bayer Leverkusen, and watching him play, he's so smooth on the ball. It's just like it's like he's gliding with the ball. You can't really take the ball away from him. He's the guy is so good. He's one of my favorite players. Whether he's on Liverpool or not, he's just one of my favorite players. So I love watching him, and going into that game, I was very excited to see what he was gonna do, and how he was gonna not necessarily take over the game, but the impact that he was gonna have. I felt like he would definitely have an impact, and he's been having a good impact recently, right? I think they said he scored. I think he scored six and assisted six recently. Like, I forget what it is, but he's on a really good run right now, and I'm happy for him because yeah, I think him adjusting to a new league, going into a new country, moving with, I'm sure probably moving with his family and all that stuff, and English is a second language and all those things. He's German, so I think just being happy for the guy and wanting him to succeed, and he's a player that I think is really 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 talented. So I really want him to do well, and boy did he do well. So we'll jump into that. Oh, and Mo Salah, I gotta be honest. I like Mo Salah. I really like him. I think he's a really he's an amazing talent, obviously. But watching him recently, something is off, right? Like, and I know that there's been talks about him and Arne Slot not being on the same page, and him being benched, and maybe his confidence has been shot and all that. But something definitely did change because even watching that game against Newcastle, like there are certain things that players will do when they're full of confidence, and you can also tell when they're not full of confidence. And Mo Salah, for one reason or the other, I mean, you could tell the guy is, whether he's in his head or I don't know, something's not right with him, and it shows. It just shows. Like he's not as threatening. He almost. I know he's a righty, but he almost kind of looks like he has two right feet. Like both his feet are like weak foot. Like it's not that bad, but I I don't know. Something's off. Something's off, and I hope whatever it is, he figures it out pretty soon because he's pretty amazing. And yeah, I kind of want to see him do well. So we'll talk about Liverpool some more. Yeah, let's talk about their. Yeah, how about yeah? We'll jump into kind of talking through the game itself, and they're playing at Anfield. Lovely setup, lovely arena, night game at Anfield. It was kind of nice at the 20th minute. I love when they sing and honor Diego Jota, and that's really cool to see. And yeah, hopefully they keep it for the whole season. They honor him for the whole season. Maybe they came out and said that they will actually keep it for the whole season. Let me make sure my laptop's charged actually. So yeah, Liverpool start. They played the 4-2-3-1. Honestly, one of my favorite formations. You know, I think yeah, it is my favorite. It's not one of my. It is my favorite formation. So yeah, McAllister and Gravenberch. I don't know if McAllister is like a true six, and maybe he's like more of an eight, and then Gravenbach was like kind of holding back a little. It was hard for me to see his true position during the game because, yeah, yeah, I was well. The game took a long time to settle. Honestly, like the first 20 minutes, it seemed like nobody could get anything going. Right? It seemed like a yeah. They kept describing it as a basketball game, and it felt like that. It was like turnover after turnover. Nobody really was getting settled. Somebody I really like Newcastle is Sandro Tonali. Honestly, I think Tonali is a great talent, and I think yeah, that's my son in the background. Um, I think he's an amazing talent. I grew up an AC Milan fan because of my dad, so it was always kind of like, man, like why we just let these guys go, and we let them go like when they're like in their prime, or they're entering their prime, in which they call AC Milan a farmers club, right? They get rid of the good people and just make the money off of it. I get it from a business side, but as a fan, it always sucks because you don't get to see the guys that you think are really good. Um, Yeah, I don't know if anybody saw Allison's. Well, he he kind of had. It was like in the first 20 minutes. The ball was going toward him, and well, he kind of had semi possession of the ball, and but he took a while to get the pass off, and Gordon kind of slid in, which it was called a foul, but in my eyes, I thought, I mean, like he's got to play, like Gordon's got to play that. It was kind of so inviting that it's like, come on, like if you're gonna invite that kind of pressure, you want, you want a player to try to take advantage of that, and which, he definitely tried to do, which I thought was really great. Um, yeah, but it was real end to end stuff that game. It was honestly, I didn't see like I didn't see that result coming just because of how the game was going. And yeah, when Barnes hits he hits the post on the free kick, that would have been a beautiful goal if he was able to complete that one. It was looking really nice. I mean, he had beautiful curve on it. Yeah, he beat the goalkeeper, everything, but yeah, I couldn't beat the post. I guess just that's as close as you can get to scoring a goal, and that's the closest you can get to being on target or not being on target, I suppose, because you hit the frame. But yeah, it was an interesting first half. Nothing. I don't know. Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot in the first half that. I mean, once the goals started coming, of course, things started to shift. But it was just, you got the sense that these guys, they were trying everything they could to settle things, but no one really had a good grip on the game. So, yeah. And I thought